Welcome everyone to the day two of Basic 3-6 certification training. Let's wait for a few more minutes until everyone's here. Hello, can you hear me? Perfect. Sorry, I had some issues with my headphones, but that's sorted now. So let's begin with our today's session. So day two of our 3CX basic certification training. So with our day one, which is yesterday, we saw about the 3CX free version and 3CX hosted with 3CX and how to install a 3CX hosted instance or a trial instance. And also we looked at the various 3CX apps and what it can do and things like that. So today, what we are going to see is the first topic that we are going to see is about zip trunks. Let me share my screen again. Sorry. Can you see my screen now? Cool. I hope you can see my screen. I'm so sorry. I'm not sure what happened, but yeah, so let's begin with today's session. So we'll first look into zip trunks. And let me, can everyone see my screen? Perfect. Cool. So what is a SIP trunk? So SIP trunk basically provides access to the public switch telephony network, which is the PSTN. So basically, the 3.6 is just a phone system where you can manage the users, manage the call flow, and things like that. But you would need a SIP trunk. So SIP trunk act as a connection for the 3CX to reach the outside world. So basically, you'll be managing all the call flows, users, extensions, and all music and all those stuffs inside the phone system or the PBX, which is the 3CX. And the SIP trunk acts like the phone line that connects the 3CX to the outside world. So transport via, so these SIP trunks, they transport via the existing internet lines and no additional local hardware required. So there are like all I know all trunkings are basically like a physical and analog system, but all the latest SIP trunks are basically hosted and cloud based. And also it can provide international numbers, so outbound to pay local rates to their point of presence. and inbound show a global presence to your customers. So there are many SIP trunks available over Australia for 3CX, but it's always recommended to use the 3CX preferred or supported SIP trunk providers. The reason why is all these preferred and supported SIP trunks have successfully passed the interop testing that 3.6 and the voice provider does. And also with the 3.6 free version, you can only use the preferred and supported SIP trunk. There is no generic trunk or third-party trunk that you can use with the 3.6 free version. So if you are using a 3.6 free version, then you need to use only preferred or supported SIP trunks. And also, every now and then, the 3.6 and the voice provider does ongoing testing to make sure the template available with the 3.6 side is up to date. And also with any new updates with the 3.6 or the voice provider that doesn't break any template. So they make sure whenever you add a trunk to the 3.6, they work as it is. And also the templates in the 3.6 softwares are already available. You don't have to manually configure templates if you're using a supported or preferred SIP trunk. So you can just add it directly. And I'll show you how to add a SIP trunk. And so you can add it directly and it will already pre-fill all the template details and things like that. And so using a preferred or supported SIP trunks is easy to configure and it's fully supported by 3CX. What is a DID? So DID stands for direct inbound dialing, which is basically phone numbers. So DID is the technical term for phone numbers. So additional numbers are associated with the account. So basically a direct inbound dialing, so it helps routing incoming calls to a destination based on the dial number. So the destination can be anything. So you can add a number to the trunk and set the number to route to. It can go to a user or it can go to a specific department where there are people in the department, or it can go to a system extension. System extensions are nothing but ring groups, call queues, and auto attendance. So these are called system extensions. Or it can go to a voicemail of a user, specific user, or it can go to voicemail of a particular group, or it can forward to an outside number like a diversion. A call comes into the 3CX and it's where you can set it to directly forward to a mobile number or to an external number directly. And for fax service, so faxes to a specific number, you can set up a fax server on the 3.6 itself, or it can go to a call flow app. Adding single DIDs or import DIDs. So both ways you can do it. So you can either add DIDs one by one, or you can import a set of DIDs to a .txt file, and then you can import it so that because let's say you have like 300 or 400 number ranges, so you cannot go and enter each and every one of them individually. That's going to consume a lot of time. So, but you can copy them to a .txt file, and then you can directly import it. And the preferred format for the DIDs are always E164 and enter a plus before and the last 6 DID numbers. A sample DIDs, that's not a, so for example, plus one, which is the country code and the rest of the digits. And or add a DID, you can use a asterisk, which is a wildcard, so to add the other numbers. And notes, something that you need to keep in mind is use the wildcard for DIDs and not the main trunk number. So you need to give a main trunk number for a trunk and then you'll be adding a DIDs. So don't use the wildcard for the main DID, main trunk number. And DIDs with the wildcard cannot be used as caller IDs. For example, if you use the star 551234 as the caller ID, when you give a call to someone or outside, when you make an outbound call, the other side will see the number as an invalid number and directly reject the call. And that is the reason you should not use the wildcard to be used as a caller ID. And outbound rules, so it helps you allow or restrict call numbers. And also it can select SIP trunk based on a criteria. So basically, I'll show you how to create an outbound rule and trunk while we are doing the demo. So basically, you can put a destination prefix, for example, call starting from let's say you're based in Adelaide and all calls starts with 08, or the state code is 8, and then so 618 and the rest of the 8 digits. So what you can do is, so with the outbound rules, you can play like even if the customer dials just the 8 digits, you can make it pick up that and then add the 618 at the front automatically. So that's basically you can use the prefix with, and also you can use it with the originator internal user. So you can set outbound rules specific to user or specific to departments or with the dial number length. We'll go through each and every of these options while we are doing the demo. Yeah, so this is what how to set the route. So for example, the previous one, there are a few conditions that needs to match the prefix, the length, or from a particular user or the department. So once that is satisfied, so what it needs to do, where it needs to route to. So PBX, you can set the route 0. So it will always check for the route 0, and the route 0, you can put it to a trunk. And the route 0, you can make it to strip digits or prepend digits and the outbound caller ID. And if the route is busy or exceeds the maximum call allowed, it can go to the second route available. So by this way, you can have failover trunks added to the second route or third route. So for example, the first route is not registered or cannot get through. It uses the secondary trunk with the channels. And this can be used like a failover mechanism as well, the different routes. And also, if it is busy, which is basically exceeds maximum calls through the trunk or unavailable, not received a response within 32 seconds from the trunk, the PBS tried to place the call on the next route. So these are the two ways you can route, or it goes through the second route. Emergency numbers. There are you need to. This is one of the most important things. So you need to identify all the emergency numbers depending on your region, and you need to make sure you do not have users with those numbers. Because, for example, let's say we are in Australia and our emergency number is 000. And if you pick a 3-digit extension length for a 3CX, it will give you an option to dial or create an extension with 3 zeros. So you need to make sure you should not do that, because if you have an extension or even a system extension or your system owner extension as 000, to make sure it's like easy to remember, and that's basically an emergency number. Just in case if people or one of your customers dialing out for an emergency number, they dial 000, it's just going to match the extension rather than sending the call out, because it's getting a match inside the system itself. So you need to identify what are all the emergency numbers, and you should make sure you do not create users under those emergency numbers. So outbound caller IDs. So outbound caller IDs is basically the number to show when calling out, and the default for all users is so there is a certain hierarchy or the priority it follows. So the default hierarchy is SIP trunk, and it goes through the default for all users is SIP trunks, and it goes through the trunk, and and the caller ID it's sent out, and default outbound caller ID. So this is where you can set caller ID on a trunk level. And for user level, if you go to users, edit users, general, outbound caller ID, you can also set through that. I'll show you while we are doing the demo, like where exactly you can set caller IDs in there. And also you can set the caller IDs in the outbound route, sorry. So outbound rules, for example, the previous one, oops. You can see there is an outbound rule, outbound caller ID tab. So that's another place where you can set the outbound caller ID. And the correct use of outbound caller ID format, so ask your provider, because each provider follows different set of rules. So some providers might expect numbers or send out numbers in the +61 format. Some providers send the numbers as 61 format, and some providers does in the O4 or O3 or O8 format. So you need to always confirm with your provider what format they use, and you need to enter the number in that exact pattern in your 3CX. I'll because for example, let's say you're with Breeze Connect, and Breeze Connect we do the numbers, or we expect the numbers to be in the 6.1 format. And what happens is you add the numbers as a O8 in the 3CX. What it does is, so we get the number as 6.1 and we are sending the number as 6.1 to the 3CX, and 3CX sees it couldn't find a match. It's just going to do a default route on the trunk level rather than sending it to the actual user or the system extension that it needs to go to, because we send the number as 618 and then da 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 the number, but when it goes to the 3.6 it couldn't find a match because that number is on the O8 format, not the 618 format. This is one of the common issue that arises, but yes, always make sure what format your voice provider accepts and enter the number exactly to be in the same format. Cool, let's set up a SIP trunk. Let me share. Cool. Let me refresh. This is the same 3.6 that we installed yesterday, hosted with 3CX directly. So the three places you can set up a caller ID is the user level. So if you go to users and go into the user, you can see the outbound caller ID. So you can enter what it needs to show as the outbound caller ID in here, or you can go to voice and chat, go into a SIP trunk. Um, Actually, yeah, I'll just add an example for now. And if you go to options and caller ID control, so this is the second place that you can enter a caller ID. Or if you go to outbound rules, and it needs at least one. Maybe we have it on here. So if you go to outbound rules, if you click add, this is the third place where you can add the outbound caller ID in here. So yeah, so let's start by creating a SIP trunk. So I'll click add a trunk, and I've selected the country as AU, Australia. So these are the preferred SIP trunk providers in Australia. So, and Breeze and Alloy is pretty much the same because Leader bought over Alloy. So there are only like three preferred SIP trunk providers in Australia. And there are other providers with supported SIP trunks and also generic supported by provider. I'm going to pick Breeze Connect for today and click OK. So you can see it automatically added the registrar ID and it automatically pre-filled all the templates. So I can add a name as this trunk. I can set it to either make it to end call directly, the default route, or to a user, or I can send it to a voicemail box or to a ring group or digital receptionist or a call queue or to a particular department or a call flow app or a call processing script or forward to an outside number. I'll keep that as it is, and let me add a trunk. Cool. So I'm just getting the trunk number. I'll add that. So I'll add. So adding that as an example, and I'm getting a trunk ID and a password. And if I click save, I'll come back to the outbound rule. So you can see the test trunk is registered. You can see it's green, and I can see it's registered from the Breeze Connect side as well. And that's pretty much instant. You don't have to wait for a long time for the calls for a trunk to register. So if you have a trunk, you just enter the details and it will automatically register. And so this is the main trunk number where I mentioned you cannot use a wildcard. And DIDs, either you can add a single DID, 61812345678. And if you click save, you've added the DID, or you can import a TXT file directly. And options, basically, you can limit the trunk to system wide, which is global, or you can set it to specific departments. And you can also limit the number of simultaneous calls per trunk. You can also enable or disable inbound calls or outbound calls or diversion headers. And you can convert the calls to E164 format, but check with your voice provider if it is good, because sometimes some providers might not accept it. And reformat caller IDs is basically if you get an inbound call, and because let's say you're having Breeze Connect as your voice provider, we send the number always as 61, and the user or the customer just want to see the 8 digits and doesn't want to see the whole number. So you can reformat the caller ID, saying we'll be looking into this a bit more in detail during the advanced training. But yeah, so you can make it to reformat, like remove the 618 in the front and just put the 8 numbers displayed to the customer or their handset and things like that. You can do that. Caller ID control, basically you can put the caller ID in here and the basic settings are in here, which is the from display name, remote party, caller ID. So these are all pre-filled according to the Breeze template, and also the codec priority. This is also set according to the Breeze template. And SMS, so if you are also using SMS with Breeze, you can just click on enable SMS and you can get the API key and the provider URL from Breeze Connect, and then you can enter it. And that's it. You can also use the trunk for SMS. I'll save this trunk. I disable it, save. Let's go to the outbound rules. So outbound rules, you can click on add, and I'll create a rule for maybe local and national. So I'm saying calls starting from 02, 03, 04, 07, 08, or maybe since it's local and national, I'll remove the 04. So any call starting from 02, 03, 07, or 08, you can set it from calls from specific extension. So calls from only extension 100 can go through or things like that. You can also set it that way. And calls with number of digits 10. So which is basically the standard numbering format. So 08, which is the state code, and then you'll have 8 digits after that. So total number of length is 10. I'm asking it to go through the test trunk. And while it's going through Breeze, since it's a Breeze Connect trunk, so Breeze Connect accepts or looks the number in the 61 format. So I'm going to strip the first digit and prepend a 61. So what it basically does is if someone dials 087078 a number 0812345678, what it does is it strips the first digit, which is the 0, and adds a 61 in the front and sends to the voice provider as 618 and the rest of the digits. So basically the customer doesn't need to dial as 61 every time. So you can play with the outbound rule so that it does the changes automatically for you. I'm clicking save. I'll create another rule for local dialing. So if the customer wants to dial just the 8 digits and they want the calls to go through, I'll say they are based in SA or Adelaide. So which is the state code is 08. So if they dial just the 8 digits, because the prefix can be anything from 1 to 9. So I'll put this as 1 to 9, or you can leave it blank. Leave it blank is basically it'll pick up anything. So I'm asking it to go through the trunk. it doesn't strip no digits because it's already 8 digits, but it adds a 618 in the front. So the customer can dial normally just the 8 digits, it goes through and it checks and it just sends out with the 618 in the front. And something that you need to be always aware is the 3.6 checks the rule from top to bottom. So the order of the rule is always so important. For the outbound rules, is it a requirement for the outgoing number to be in the format with starting with the country code, even for local Australian calls? Um, yes and no, because it totally depends on the carrier or the voice provider. Some voice provider accept as with the O format, but some voice providers accept as a 6.1 format, and some provider accepts only in the 6.1 format or plus 6.1 format. So you need to always confirm what format the voice provider uses. And so the reason why I mentioned the order of the rule is always important is let me let's say I'm putting a rule for 1300 number or 1300 number and 1800 and call starting with I'm not doing anything and I'm putting as 10. It needs to test trunk. It just needs to add a 6.1 in the front because it doesn't strip any digits. So it's send the number as 6.1, 1300 and rest of the digits. The reason why the order is so important is what happens if this rule is at the top. So let's say I'm dialing a 08 number and it comes to this rule and checks prefixes any, so it matches the 08 rule and calls from any extension that matches and calls with the number of length is 10, so it matches. So, but it doesn't strip digits and sends the number in 6.1. So it's just going to add 6.108 and the rest of the digits and send it to the voice provider. So you need to make sure you have the rules are in the correct order. So if you go this one and let me just 1 second. And so if I do that, so so you need to make sure the order is always right. So this for if it is in this order, then only if it is 02, 03, 07, 08, it matches that rule. If not, it goes to the second rule. So it checks the rules always in the order. So it checks the first rule. If it is getting a match, it goes through. If not, it goes checks the second rule or third rule and the vice versa. And while in the rule, if the first route is busy or not available or it doesn't get a response, you can have a failover trunk and it just uses that trunk to go through. So that's basically everything on the voice and chat, outbound caller ID and users. And so, sorry, outbound rules, voice and chat and users. And outbound caller ID, there is another common issue that occurs that people phone us and saying, yeah, I've entered a caller ID in the user level, but it's not showing when we give us a call out because there is a certain priority order which is the the least is the user, the most and the second is the trunk, and the third is the outbound rules. The outbound rules has highest priority because that's the endpoint when the calls will go out. And for example, if you're having a caller ID in the user level, and if you have a different caller ID in the trunk level will override whatever is on the user level. And if you have a caller ID on the user level and on the trunk level, and if you have a different one on the outbound rules level, then whatever is on the outbound rules has more preference. Because so when there is nothing on the trunk or the outbound rules, it just follows the user level. And if you have something on the user level, and if you have entered something in here, so just the user makes a call, it has an outbound caller ID. It comes to the outbound rules and checks if it needs to go through this trunk, and the trunk has a different caller ID, so that gets overwritten. And when it goes through when it sends the call out, if there is something in here, so this will override whatever is on the trunk or the user. So this has most preference. So the order is user is the least, trunk is the mid, and outbound rules has the more priority for the outbound caller ID. So that's pretty much everything for the outbound rules, trunks, and the caller IDs. Yeah, do you have any questions? Same procedure for mobile as well. Do you mean mobile the IDs, Ronnie? Yes. So the same procedure goes for mobile number as well. So even if you're setting outbound caller ID or the setting the number or entering the number in the trunk, it needs to be on the 6.1 format or +61 depending on the voice provider. And even for SMS, it needs to be on the correct format. Let's say you're having an SMS and you have a number not in the 6.1 format but on a different format. And the customer complaining that I'm not receiving any SMS. That's because they entered the number wrong. And then when the SMS comes in, it couldn't get a match. So that will be the reason. Any other questions, anyone? Cool. If there are no further questions, let's continue through. So setting up your team. So yeah, so that's the next module that we are going to see. In this one, we'll be looking at the different profile status, departments, and things like that, which will allow you to organize or set up different groups or things like that in the 3.6 for your customer. So there are the three common profiles that you use available on the 3.6 based on the time of the day. Available, away, or DND. Available is basically when you're in office hours. Away is basically when you're on a break, and do not disturb is basically outside office hours. 3.6 also has two other custom profiles that you can use. So custom 1 and custom 2. So sorry guys. Custom 1 is more similar. Custom 1 is more similar to the available. So if you need a secondary custom profile, you can similar to the available, you can make use of the custom 1, and custom 2 is more similar to the to not disturb. When I say custom 1 is more similar to available, basically available setting will be something like I'm a user. If I'm available, if I don't pick the call within 20 seconds time, then it goes to my voicemail. But if I'm set to DND, it needs to directly go to voicemail. These are the two different sets of functions. So custom 1 is basically something like that. You can set it to go to a destination after a certain amount of time. Custom 2 is basically directly goes to the destination if that profile is set. We'll be looking into a bit more detail. And changing profiles, you can do it in multiple ways. So you can either do it on the 3.6 app, and also you can do it on the web client or the PWA, and users within the department administrator can change the status of other users. For example, there are different departments in the customer's organization like sales, um, support, and things like that. For example, you assign the support manager or the support team lead as the department administrator, they have the ability to change the statuses of other users as well in their department. And changing profiles on the IP phone. So there are predefined dial codes that's available, which you can make use of. For example, if you're not using a 3.6 app, but you want to change the status of your extension or the user, you can use dial codes. For example, *3 is the dial code, so which is basically *30 is available, *31 is away, and *32 is do not disturb. Basically, you can program these dial codes to the BLF of a physical handset. So all they need to do is they just click one button, they can set themselves available. Click one button, they can set themselves to DND or away and things like that. So yes, so they can use it from the BLF button or from within their voicemail menu, they can change their status. Changing profiles during with integration. So you can also auto switch based on the time, which is basically you give it to office hours and make the user follow the office hours and it will automatically switch. Or with the M365 or Google integration, you can sync the Teams calendar or your Outlook calendar. So with that, you can also with that integration, so it will also automatically update the status of your profile directly. So forwarding rule options. So every extension will have the forwarding rule option, which is basically what it needs to do when a call hits that extension. And you can set something, you can set the same for internal and external calls, or you can set different for internal and external calls. By default, it will be the same, but also, for example, there might be a customer and they have a manager who during their break or when they're in a meeting, they just want to answer internal calls. So in that way, how you can set is for all external calls, it goes to voicemail. Just for internal calls, it needs to ring to them or things like that. And for internal and external calls, you can make it to go to voicemail, or you can make it to ring their mobile number, or it can make it to an external mobile number. And also you can set up the rebound, which is basically it's going to announce a call has been rebounded to da da da. Or you can set it to go to a different user, or you can directly make it to end the call rather than doing all those. These are the different forwarding rule options available. And there are a few features that's available with the forwarding rules, which is ring my mobile simultaneously. For example, a user, you've given the mobile number. So not the 3.6 app on the mobile, but your actual mobile number. So when you check that box, what it does is whenever your extension rings, it will also ring your mobile, not through the app, but your actual mobile through your mobile number. And accept multiple calls, that's a more popular feature. For example, if the calls are going through a ring group, so and the receptionist needs to when the let's take a receptionist as an example. She is on a call or he is on a call, and a second call comes in. It will not directly go to voicemail. So if you check the accept multiple calls, what it does is the receptionist can see a second call coming in. It will also ring them, so she or he can decide whether they want to put the first call on hold, answer the second one, or they can answer the second one and let them know that please wait for a few minutes, and then they put them on hold and answer back to the get back to the first one, so that make sure like a good impression for whoever calling the customer. So log out from the queue when they are on a call, you can make it to log out from the queue, or when they're on a particular profile. For example, if I'm set to lunch, I need to log out from the queue. So that's something that you can do. Accept calls from ring group, that's default. If you don't want to accept calls, you can just enable accept push notification is basically enabling push notifications. And forwarding rule per profile. So yeah, so this is what I previously mentioned. Available and custom one has a certain um, is almost similar, which is ring time out after a certain amount of time, and then it follows whatever the destination is. Away, do not disturb, and custom to. So it's instantly triggered. So as soon as the call comes into the extension, and there is no ring out time, so it just instantly triggered external callers. Either it needs to go to voicemail or end the call, and depending on whatever the forwarding rule option is set. So there are certain criterias when the forwarding rules don't apply. That's calls from ring group or call queues. So when there are calls from ring groups or call queues, available stay when you're on available status, forwarding rules are ignored. So the RMS will ring the mobile phone of the user directly. But when you set to away or DND, only forwarding to external number or mobile is allowed, so rebound calls will not be forwarded. Voicemail greetings. So that's basically you're able to define a different greeting per profile. Either can the user can upload them manually or record them manually from the app, or they can record the audio and give it to you, and you can upload it manually from the admin console. Or if they are using a physical handset, they can get into the voicemail menu and then they can set up or record their own message. And yeah, so they're able to define a different greeting per profile. So they can also set up a different voicemail greeting. For example, when you're set to available and it goes to voicemail, sorry, you can put a message like, sorry, we are busy. Get back to you. Please leave a message. We'll get back to you as soon as possible. Or when you're set to available, sorry, we are not available at the moment, but we'll get back to you as soon as we are back in the office or things like that. And yeah, so it overrides default greeting only for specific statuses, and audio format it needs to be WAV, and PCM it needs to be 8 kilohertz 16-bit mono. And you can convert these audios directly from a different converter, or 3.6 has its own audio converter. I'll show you how to use it because it makes things more easier, because you just put the audio and it just gives you back the audio in this exact format, so you can just directly go and upload. So exceptions. So these are something that you can, that's an option available with the call forwarding. For example, calls from a specific number, you just want to block it or end the call. Or calls from a particular number, you just need to make it go to voicemail. You can set like that. So allows call from a certain caller IDs to be treated differently. You can use wildcard, for example, if you want to make sure any call starting from this or things like that. I'll show you how to create one while we are doing the demo. And the order of the exception rule matters, similar to the outbound rule. So if you have multiple exception rules, so whichever, if it gets a match on the first or second, it will not go to the third or fourth. So it checks from top to bottom. So this is how a normal call flow will look like. So basically, incoming call to user, it first checks if there are any exceptions. Let me just 1 second. Cool. I hope you can see. Yep. So the first one, the incoming call to the users, it first checks if there are any exceptions added or configured. Just 1 second, guys. Yeah, it first checks exceptions. If there are any exceptions or it's getting a match, it goes through that way. If there are no exceptions or no match for the exceptions, it then checks whether the status is available or away or DND or custom 1 or custom 2. So the available, away, and DND, they have automatic switching on, so they can switch according to the officers. But the custom 1 and custom 2, so they cannot switch automatically. That is something, if you're using that, you need to change it manually. So for example, if you are on custom 1 and it will not automatically switch it to any of the others, you need to or manually change it to custom 2 or any of the others to make it go automatic or things like that. So only the available, away, and DIND or automatic switching, the custom 1 and custom 2, or doesn't have automatic switching. So call comes in, it checks if there are any exception. If there are no, it checks the status. And if the status is available, then it just forwards the function if they are picking, it will check for the certain number. It will ring for a certain number of time, whatever it's entered, and then if no answer, it sends busy or what it needs to do. If it is away, it can make it's instantly triggered. It checks whether it's an internal call or an external call and route accordingly. Do not disturb is the same, instantly triggered. It then checks it what it needs to do depending on whether it's an internal or external call, and custom 2 is also similar to them, so it just checks instantly triggered and check whether it needs to make an internal or whether it's an internal or external call and route accordingly. And so custom 1, which is similar to the available, so it brings out to a certain amount of time and then checks if no answer or busy, then it needs to it goes to what it needs to, or what the routing is, and then work accordingly. Cool. Let's demo. Cool. We are going to users, and in the user, we can go to the existing user and call forwarding. This is where you can set up the routings accordingly. And yeah, so there are two places for automatic switching, which is the available, away, and DND. Either you can it just follows the default office hours. If there are no default office hours, or if this user belongs to a different time zone. So let's say the default office hours is from 9 to 5, and you can set accordingly. And if it is 9 to 5, and also you can add breaks to it. For example, click add, no, not that. So you can add a break hour in between, let's say 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. is break. So you can say 9 to 5. So from 9 to 1, it will be available, and 1 to 2, it will be away, and 2 to 5, it will be available again, and 5 to the next day 9, it will be DND. And go to users, and you can set accordingly what it needs to do during the available hours or away hours or DND. And also, if the user wants to have a different office hours and doesn't want to follow a specific one, so doesn't want to follow the global one, you can also set something like the extension uses specific office hours and set their office hours accordingly. So call forwarding, you can set up a custom message if you want. And so this is what I previously mentioned. So it has a default ring out time. But if you go to away, there is no default ring out time. So it just directly gets triggered. So you can set it to like ring for 30 seconds. And if no one answered the call, if it is an external call, send it to my voicemail. But if it is an internal call, same as all call, it's basically send it to voicemail. Or if you want to treat it separately, bring my mobile. So it's just throwing it that error because I don't have a mobile number in here. So I'm just going to put 614-123-45678. Save. Yeah, so I'm putting that as my mobile. So basically, if no one answered with the 30 seconds, then it checks if it is an external call or internal call. If it is external, it goes to voicemail. If also internal needs to go to voicemail, you can put voicemail or same as all calls, or you can, if I wanted to send it to my mobile, if it is an internal call, if it is urgent, so I can just put my mobile. So yeah, after 30 seconds, it's going to send the call to my mobile. If the handset, that's basically for unanswered, and if the handset is or the user is busy or not registered. So for example, I'm receiving a second call. So what it needs to do, if it needs to go to voicemail or extension number or my mobile number or external number or system extension, you can set accordingly. Just a second. Cool. And for internal calls, same way you can do it. And these are the different features that I mentioned previously. This one will allow to ring my mobile whenever I'm receiving a call on the user, whenever there's a call hitting the user. Accept multiple calls is basically if you want to answer multiple calls at the same time. Log out from the queue if it is on a particular status or something like that. And away is something, yeah, it's instantly triggered. You can have a custom message. And when it's away is basically switched when you're on a break. And when you're on a break, if it is a internal call, you can set it to go to voicemail or extension number or mobile number and things like that. Or external call, you can set it something like the same way you can wherever you want to route the call to, you can set it like that. And you can set up greetings different for each and every profile. And do not disturb is also instantly triggered. That happens when you're on the out office hours. And these are the two custom messages that's available, custom profiles. So lunch is basically custom one, and business trip is basically custom two. And if you think lunch and business trip is not, let's say they want to rename it, they want to repurpose it, you go to systems, options, and so you can see the by default it's named as lunch and business trip, but you can rename it, for example, custom to I need to be set it to diversion or things like that. I'm not saving this, but yeah, so if you want to rename it as a diversion, and when it is on the custom 2, which is the business trip, whenever I'm on the business trip or diversion, it just needs to directly go to a different extension number or send busy tone or voicemail, so you can set accordingly. And lunch is similar. You can give it a different name if you want. You can see custom profile name and custom status message. And that's basically happens when it reaches a certain ring timeout, and then it then goes to the external call or internal call and treat accordingly. Exceptions. So this is what the exception rule. So when a call comes in, this is what it checks first. For example, calls from a particular number. So let's say 61870785300. If that's basically the Breeze Connect number. So if I receive a call from that number during all hours or specific hours, I just need to send it to my mobile, or I need to send it to my extension, different extension number, or it needs to go to voicemail directly, or it needs to go to a system extension, or it needs to go to my mobile, or if I want a rebound, it can add a rebound. So, and I'm adding that. So calls from that, but if someone calling from Breeze Connect, any call, any time, it needs to go to my mobile directly. So you can set up an exception rule, and so whenever a call comes in, it checks the exception first, and if there are no exceptions or no matches, it then checks what status they are currently in, and you can change the status directly from here. Currently it's set available. I can set it away, to not disturb, lunch, or business trip. I'm setting it back to away, and if and it will route accordingly. And also you can set it to a custom message name or things like that directly from here. And yep, so that is pretty much everything for the profile status and different profile status and how calls will be handled when the calls hit the extension. Anyone having any questions? Any questions, anyone? Feel free to ask any questions, even if it is a simple question. Don't hesitate, ask, and that's how you learn. Cool. If there are no questions, let's have a quick 5 minutes break and we'll get back to it again. With the exception in setting on the user level, how does this work if the external calls in, gets to an IVR, and then goes to a group, then the user is not a part of, then it won't trigger the exclusion, then forward to priority, for example? No, so these exceptions or the profile statuses are done only if included only if the calls are directly going to the extension. For example, if it is going through a call queue and the user is part of the call queue, it's just going to ring normally because basically going the calls are in the system extension and the system extension is set to just ring the user if it is available. If they're set to away or DND, it just ignores the exception rule or anything else. It just the system extension will make the user either ring or do not ring depending on their status, but it doesn't go through the exception or all those rules when it's going through a system extension. Any other questions, anyone? You would use a caller ID rule then to achieve this, I assume. So all calls from a particular number can go to the priority queue, not into the sales queue, for example. Yes, but this needs to be done. This cannot be done on a user, but if the calls are first going to the user, for example, from the let me show some. So if the calls are coming to the user and from the user level, you can say the calls from a particular number needs to directly go to the system extension and the ring group or call queue and things like that. But if the calls are coming through a call queue or a ring group or an IVR, then it will directly either ring the user or do not ring the user. There are some exceptions to that. Um, let me so yeah, let me check. There was a slide. Yeah, so this is when forwarding rules do not apply, so calls from ring groups or call queues. So it's just going to ring regardless of whatever the status is, because the system extension, let's say the call queue is the one that's handling the call or which has the call. It's just sending the call to the users, not the actual call completely to the users. But the system extension, it just decides whether the user it needs to ring the user or not. But only when the user receives the call directly or when the call is transferred to the user directly, then it follows the exception rules and all the forwarding rules and things like that. Was I clear, Mark? Perfect. Cool. Let's continue through with the next module, which is departments. So departments is basically, sorry, there was a question. So what do you mean by rebound calls? So rebound calls is basically when you want to announce to the caller the call is getting forwarded. For example, you are giving a call to the 36 extension, and the 36 extension is set to divert or forward the call directly to an external number. So from your perspective, so you'll be expecting the user will be answering the call, but that's diverting to a different user. So from the caller's perspective, so if you want the caller to know that the call is getting diverted to a different person, so you can set it, enable the rebound. The rebound, what it basically does is it just announces the caller that the call is getting diverted or rebounded to XYZ. So that's what it does. So you can enable it or disable it, but you can set it to divert or go to a different external number. But if you want the customer to make sure the caller is aware that the call is getting rebounded, you can enable it. Cool. And departments, that's basically groups or departments is basically inside a specific or single customer. There might be different departments or groups. For example, sales department, accounts department, support department, and management departments, and things like that. And you can add each department, and you can add separate departments, and you can specify different settings to the different department. For example, this if even it doesn't only work with different department kind of scenario. For example, you have the customer has an office based in Sydney and Perth, as well as let's say somewhere overseas. They all follow different time zones. So you can add separate departments according to that as well, like Sydney department, per Western Australia department, or Perth department, or overseas Dubai department. And you can set up specific hours, time zones for them, and call flows for them. And then you can set things accordingly, like how they need to function for each departments. So you can add specific users or different users to departments. A user can be a part of multiple departments. And also it's possible for a user within their department to see other users or perform actions to other users if they are a department administrator or things like that. So there are different roles available in the 3.6 for a user. So these are ordered according to the higher priority or higher access level. So system owner has the higher authority, and he has access to the entire system in and out. And whenever you're creating the system, the first user that's getting created will be the system owner. And system admin, and the next is owner, department admin, manager, receptionist, user. So each of them can do different functions, and they all can do certain set of functions. Let me show something real quick. So if I search for 3CX roles, you can see what each user level can do and don't. For example, if you're a user, you cannot see the group calls, you cannot pick up or divert calls or control IVR, things like that. And system owner, basically, they can do pretty much everything. And something I missed to show you earlier is the 3.6 audio converter thingy. So if I just search for 3.6, so the first link I'm clicking, and that has the 3.6 audio converter. This was I was supposed to show that during the demo, but I missed it. So all you need to do is just drag and drop the file, and it will give you the file exactly in this format. So it's ready to be uploaded directly to the 3CX. Let's continue back. So yeah, so the different status available, and they are ordered from top to bottom. So system owner, system admin, owner, department admin, manager, receptionist, and user. Roles of a system owner. So on new installation, the first user is created will be the system owner, and he can elevate users to so he can create any other users to their level or below level. For example, if they are a department administrator, they can set another user as a department admin or manager or receptionist or user, but a department admin cannot give owner access to a different user. So anything, for example, if they are system admin, they can give a different user, set a role for a different user to any of these, but not the system owner. But the system owner, so they can do any of the roles. And they can elevate users to system owner to dedicated service only. And also, it requires a unique email address. This is something that's more important because every system owner needs to have an email address that's unique. So what happens is, let's say you are a system owner. Let's say I'm a system owner and I'm using help@breezeconnect.com.au as the email. And I'm creating another user or a system admin or a department administrator with the same email. So it will accept it, but it might throw an error saying the email already in use. But if you ignore and just create the user, just in case in the future, if you forget the password or you miss the password, you cannot do a password reset. Because when you're doing a password, forget password, it's just going to ask for the email ID. And when you put the help@breezeconnect.com.au as the email ID, there won't be any email because it then checks the 3.6, and 3.6 has two set of users has the same email ID. So it doesn't know which user it needs to send the email ID to. So you will not receive a welcome email to reset the password and you will lose access to the system. So you need to always make sure the system owner, at least the system owner, has a unique email address and not shared with any other users. And department view. So yes, so on the department view, you can do on a per user basis, and you can give rights to see the users and perform operations directly from the UI. I'll show you how to do that during the demo. And department publishing. So this makes all extension visible to everyone, and no calls visible, or no control action. So you can set that up for each and every department. And office hours, so yep, so this is what I think I've showed you during the previous demo. So you can define specific office hours for different department, and you can put it to in office, break times, out office, and also you can alter the behavior of the department or system extension or user depending on what hours it is on. And not only users that you can add to the department, you can also add system extensions to the departments. And call routing, so DIDs are routed at the destination based on, you can set it to go to a system extension or to a user, or you can also set it to go to a particular department. For example, from the trunk, you can set it to go to the support department, and everyone in the support department will going to be receiving a call. And times are defined by the department hours and holidays. And office hours within the PBX, so the user's office hours has higher priority. It will override if there are different global officers or department officers. Because when you're selecting the officers, so the option clearly says use specific office has for this user. That basically overrides anything. So even if it is a department or global, it's going to override it. And department holidays, you can also set up, for example, if the users are based in Sydney or Perth and they have different public holidays, you can specific holidays depending on per department, either a full day or a range of day or annual day basis or defined within the department with the holiday. And user profile switching. So, yep, I think I've already been through this. So, in office, it changes to available, break times is set to away, and outside office hours, it's set to do not disturb. And the user behaves based on active profile forwarding rules, and user profile will not automatically change if the profiles are custom or not custom to. So, all these three will automatically switch depending on the office hours. But if it is on custom one or custom two, there won't be any automatic switching. You need to manually switch it. And correct officers, correct time ranges. So there is a specific way you need to do it. You can have multiple open and close time in between, and you can have multiple breaks in between, but you cannot have multiple breaks in between one set of closed hours. So basically, this is a correct way because you have a close time, which is out of hours, close time out of hours, and 9 to 5, the open hours, and from 12 to 1, you have the break. You can also set something like have a close hour from 8 to 3 o'clock, 8 to 15 open hours, and from 15 to 17 it's closed hours. From 17 to 23 it's again open hours, and from 23 to till 8 it's again closed hours. And you can have breaks in between two closed hours. So which is with one office hours time you can have only one break. So even here, so you can have one half a set of officers and you can have one break. But you cannot have something like this. The system will not allow, so it's going to throw an error. So you cannot have three different breaks or more than one break between open hours or office hours. But if you want to achieve something like this, multiple breaks, you can use the out office hours. For example, from 8 to 3, you have a open hours, and then you have the second or third break that you want to use as a out office hours, but it's just going to follow the DND setting. You cannot follow the away setting. So you can have only one break between open or close hours. So that's something you need to make sure while configuring it, and the system will not allow you to configure something like that. So that's basically between a closing and opening time, department is out of office and not on a break. Let's jump into a quick demo. This. Cool. So we are back to that. So let's jump to like departments. So the default department is automatically created when their system is created. You can create a separate department like let's say um, essay team. You can use different prompts if you want. If you want to publish information to all of the extension, you can use it. Click OK. And I'm adding maybe the 100 to it. And I'm going back. I'm creating another one saying WA team and the office hours and things like that. Sorry, the prompts and stuff. I'm clicking and I'm using the second user to it. And yep, so with the first user, so I can add more users if I want or remove more users with all the users. And a user can also be part of two different departments. For example, Manoj Basic, the 101, it's basically part of two departments now. And you can see since it's a user, it can see the calls and see presence, but not much. But the first one is system owner, so it can barge in, see presence, see calls, call operation, user operation, things like that. If you want to remove, you can just click on that. And options is basically the same thing if you want to rename it or things like that. And if you go to office hours, so you can either set up a global office hours, which is the default, or you can set up a set team, and you can, if you don't want it to be a global time zone, so you set it to Adelaide. and the W team to what? You can set up the time zone for specific departments, and you can set up office hours for specific departments and office holidays. If SA has a public holiday on the particular day, but not WA, you can put them according to that, and then it follows the office hours setting. And yeah, so when you're adding office holiday, you can put it like let's say Christmas, either a single day or range of days. If it is a range of day, you can put as a 12 from, let's say, from 23/12/2025 to um sorry, 12 is the month, in 27/2025 if it needs to occur annually or just for the particular day. And if you want a custom prompt that you want to upload, you can save, and that's just going to follow holiday. And so yeah, office hours can be set per department. And if you go to voice and chat, and if you go to test runs, so you can also set the route to go to a department. For example, if I click department, it gives me the options. If I want calls to this trunk needs to go to the SA team and then and save, and so call anyone giving a call to that trunk or coming through the trunk, it's just going to go to the SA team department, which has these two users. And yeah, so you can add multiple users and users role. So you can set something if you go to a user. So it's already set as system owner because this is the first user created, and the email need to be unique. And if you go to the other user, you can set the role from user, receptionist, or department admin, or system administrator, or owner, depending on what you want to give the user access to. And since I changed this to owner. So if I go back to the department and SA team, you can see the 101 now has other um, set of access. So now it also has access to most of the operation that it can do. Can the holiday date range go across different months and different years, like Christmas break from? It can go through different months, but I don't think it can go through different years. So for example, if you go to here, I'll click add. I'm adding test one. It can definitely go through different months. I'm putting that from 17th till next month 17th, and I can save. But if I'm choosing something from this one's on the latest version, because with the older version, it doesn't allow you to go through different years, but let's check through. If I choose from 25 to 3, yeah, so it cannot go through. If you cannot set annual, but it will allow you to save it if it is just occurring for that particular year. But if it is annual, you need to set so two different. For example, the example that you mentioned, you can set up two separate ones. So for example, I click annual. I set from 25th December to 31st December, and from 1st of January to 5th of January, and I set it to annual, so I don't have to make changes every year. Yes, you're correct, Mark. So I was about to show that when I was completed through the module. But yeah, since you've asked it, I can show that now. So one thing to keep in mind whenever you're doing the or holiday horses. So let's pick this one. So Christmas holidays, it's that days, and you can add a custom prompt in here and save, but it will not automatically push it to the holiday prompt directly. Because with the latest one, so if you go to integrations and if you go to the call script, there are certain scripts available to make it, and you get the holiday prompt. So I'll go through these a bit more detail during the advanced, where we look at the call scripts or the CRM, the other integrations on a basic level. But yeah, so I'll also show how to do the holiday one. So there are predefined scripts available. You might find this a more advanced, but just for the holiday, I'll show you how it works. I can select the holiday one, and I can give it as holiday. And when the user dial code or upon receiving call on the trunk during the particular holiday, and this is the trunk, either system wide or particular department. And since it's a system wide trunk, I cannot save it. Or when a user dials, or when a DID is called, when this particular DID is called, and only that call goes through the particular department. It's because also I don't have the correct license. We are on a test license. I can set it so it can directly push it to the holiday prompt. This is something that you need to do, but we'll be looking at a bit more detail during the advanced modules with all the call flows and things like that. But yeah, this is also an additional step that you need to do when you're doing an office hours thing. And yeah, so basically, you can set up multiple departments, and you can set routing through different departments. And office hours, you can set up different departments. But if you go to users, and if you set up an office hours, something like in here, so by default, it's going to have default officers or the department officers. But if you wanted to use specific officers, whatever you're entering in here, that's going to override. It's the department hash or global hash. So it will not follow what you enter on the department or the global. It's just going to follow whatever you're entering on the user level. This has more priority. And even if you do something like this, it shouldn't matter for the out of office or the holiday prompt, because when you add the call script, but during the holiday prompt, it's just going to follow that as it is. And yep, that is pretty much everything for today. Do you have any questions? Any questions, anyone? Feel free to ask any questions. Yep, sure, Mark. I'll give you a contact number. Can you check your message, Mark? I've sent you the Breeze Connect support number. Is it possible to get the recording of the session? Will these will be available for playback? Yes. So after tomorrow's session, you will all receive an automated response from GoTo with the link for the recordings where you can just go there and directly view these recordings. Or if you're in a hurry and you want to see the previous because our previous recordings are available in our YouTube page. So, but if you can wait until tomorrow, you can have this specific trainings recording available from tomorrow. And is there any live chat support channel in 3CX? There is, yes, but I don't think you can get answer for complex stuff. But if you are purchasing 3.6 licenses through Leader, you can contact the Breeze Connect support. So we are all we can also provide help you with the 3.6 technical support to a certain extent. If there are no further questions, we can wind up the session for today, and I'll stay for another 5 or 10 minutes if you have more questions. Thanks everyone for attending.